Okay. We're on this thing here. Sprint number 5, PAINT5D camera. Get Bitpacked layers. Part number 42 of PAINT5D sprint. It's not much of a sprint when it has 42 sections. Like this, we only have 110 videos, so this sprint technically is half of the videos that I've done so far. I really don't want to record anymore, but I did say I was going to do that one little thing. And also, if anybody knows the answer to this question, I swear I'm asking for a friend, totally not asking about myself at all. Actually, you probably couldn't even see that. Never mind. It doesn't matter that you didn't see that nonsense I was posting on LinkedIn. It's probably for the better. So, I have kind of like 4 different systems I want to stub in, and I don't really feel like writing them right now. But basically, I want a unit test killing subsystem that it comes before a whole bunch of things, and it can be used to kill unit tests. So it's going to be kind of like the silence class in the sense that it actually knows what unit tests exist ahead of time. And I also want an ASCII list, like a scrolling queue of ASCII somehow, that keeps a scrolling character queue of the characters I've been pressing as a way to invoke kind of like keyboard shortcuts, or like it's always listening and it has a record of the keys you've been pressing in a certain time window, and we can use that to invoke like terminal commands without having a UI for it. And then later we could plug that ASCII list thing into some type of terminal. But right now we can use that to create like a hidden terminal. So we'll have an ASCII list. We'll also have an ASCII command class. So ASCII list will be ASCII list will be ASCII list is just collecting the characters, while ASCII command is actually looking at that list and executing commands depending on what it finds. And then I also want like a re-entrant unit test runner, but I'm actually not going to write any code for it. But I want to note that, hey, I gave it a thought and I decided it was a bad idea, right? So I want to put that piece of code in there and just say, we're not going to do this. So it's kind of like a stub saying, this feature creep, we're never going to do it. It was a bad idea. Because I'm thinking about the implications of how that could affect the code base and make things very difficult on us by trying to make all of our unit test code re-entrant. You know, the idea would be to like you boot up the program and then you can select to run the unit tests, and then every frame of the game or something you would run more unit test code. No, that's just going to create horrible problems for us the way we write our unit tests. So no, we're not going to do that. But I might want to stub that in. So let's go look at the subsystems here. So let's look at our C11 file. Right, and it has all these subsystems, right? So it has to-do manager, it has silence. So I think that the test killer should be right after silence, right? So we can, if we silence code from a certain unit test, we might want to know about that. Yeah, we definitely want to know about... Hold on. If we silence a unit test, do we want to make sure that... If we put it after silence, then we can silence messages from that code, right? We can say... let me think about this. Well, the unit test killer is really just going to be used for some flags to say this test is off, that test is off, that test is off, right? If we put it after silence, we have the ability to silence the logs and say, don't give me a summary of what unit tests are turned off or on, right? Which may be a bad idea, to allow those messages to be silenced, right? If the unit test, Well, silence kind of knows about everything ahead of time, right? That's the design of it. So I don't like arbitrary decisions. So how can we make a non-arbitrary decision? Because both silence and kill test, they're gonna want to know about everything in front of them, really. Now, the unit test killer isn't ever going to test silence, right? It doesn't need to know about silence. I am leaning towards including the unit test killer after silence, just because. Well, why? That's what I'm leaning towards, but why? Having the control to say, turn off the summary of what unit tests are on or what unit tests are off seems like it might be useful, right? Because that summary, even though knowing about that is very important information, and we do want to know about it, occasionally I could see it clogging up our logs, right? And if we include the test killer before silence, then silence technically will not be able to silence it, right? Because we can't reference. The way we use the silencer class to silence certain sublibraries is that those sublibraries reference silence and say, hey, am I silenced by silence? And then if they are, they don't say anything when they're executing their logging code, right? So yeah, I think that in some cases, there's the potential for kill tests to clog up the logs, so we should probably put that after silence. And in fact, we should probably put it right here, right? We should put it after the to-do manager, right? So in case we have some to-dos that we want to put in there, it'd be nice to be able to use to-do manager as well. But besides that, kill test is very much like silence, and so that's kind of why I was thinking, well, we should have it right next to silence. But there is the potential that maybe, just maybe, well, are we really going to have any to-dos? If we really need to use to-dos, we could always use macros. And because I can see the structure of silence being, I can see the structure of kill test being so similar to silence that it would make kind of sense to have it next to each other, right? So, okay. So I've thought about it enough to where I'm confident my decision is not completely arbitrary. Right? Now, not completely arbitrary is better than completely arbitrary. So there may be some arbitrariness about how I've made my decision, but I think I've thought about the decision long enough to say that, you know, this is where it's going to go. Okay, cool. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do this thing where it's kind of scary because we're going to lose our place when we're stubbing all this stuff in. But that we'll say that by losing our place by closing all of this other stuff, it is an exercise to the reader to be able to know what the heck you're doing. I'm going to take this diagram here. I like this diagram. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to copy this diagram for P5G. What is this? P5D OGL. And I'm going to open up the README. And I was like pasting diagrams into here, like just getting crazy and be like, here's some diagrams, you know. Diagrams. PAINT5D mental models. And then we have more diagrams. This is diagrams P5D1 OGL. AKA PAINT5D GLSL code. Right? We can paste those in there. And the reason for this is I just want to Pictures are nice, right? Pictures are nice, so therefore, we got PAINT5D mental models. Then we got more diagrams for OpenGL kind of stuff. And yes, it is a little bit kind of crazy, right? With everything that's going on in here. But I'd like to add that to the README, just so that we can just keep up all this idea of just, you know, pictures, little ASCII diagrams, right? Big summary of stuff, diagrams, right? I think that'd be nice in the README. Having like a high-level overview, or having a high-level overview of all these conceptual diagrams, high-level overview of conceptual types, right? So all the different things that can kind of be used in here, having like diagrams of all of that madness, right? So that I would like it if the README itself could be used as like a codex where I can just look at the README while I'm looking at code and be like, yeah, that makes sense. According to the README, this code makes sense. I think that would be nice. So I'm going to do that. And unit test data, notes file. We just copied this stuff here. This is the data file for PAINT5D OGL. And it looks like it just has a struct called covbox4, which just stores a canvas user view coordinate, x and y, that should lay on a very specific coordinate. The coordinate that it exists on is a border of a PAINT5D data segment partition. So what I mean by that is, if we look in the library really quick, I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but if we look in the mod folder, we created this little piece of test code here, and a covbox4 data type. Any XY coordinate should lie on one of these colored lines: the red, the green, the blue, or the white. If it's a covbox4 coordinate, then it is a canvas user view coordinate. But if it's a canvas user view coordinate, it is not necessarily a covbox4 coordinate, right? The whole like square versus rectangle kind of thing, right? So these black coordinates in here are canvas user view coordinates, but they are not covbox4 coordinates. The colored lines are also canvas user view coordinates, but they are also covbox4 coordinates, right? So, square is to rectangle as covbox4 is to canvas user view coordinates. Okay, anyways, I didn't really need to explain that, but I thought I might as well explain that while I'm about to close these files. And we can close the README. Okay. And we can close this ridiculous unit test code that we'll probably have to look at it a few more times before we're done looking at it forever. So let's stub in all of the things we want. So we want to have right here we want to make this kill test.d unit test killer data file. Okay. Kill test.d, right? Then we want another thing for the functions. There may not be any functions for this, but we want to keep a kind of a uniform structure in the code base, right? So kill test.f unit test killer functions file. Call this kill test.f. We also want a re-entrant unit test runner, which actually is not going to do anything. And it's not going to do anything. We could actually put it right next to kill test, right? Since it's like since it's kind of related. So let's make that as well. So let's go over here. And we can say re-entrant unit test runner. Reentrant unit test runner. Do not make this. It will only lead to pain. Instead, we will use to turn off some unit tests as needed to speed up development. Alright, so I'm literally making a system to note that we don't want to do it. So re-n-utr unit test runner .d._. Make another one for the functions as well. So there's so this is all about uniformity, right? So even though it's not going to actually do anything, we're still going to stub it in as if it were there. And this is probably controversial, right? Because why stub in something that doesn't exist, right? But remember, it's not just about the decisions you make, it's also about the decisions you don't make. And we kind of want this stubbed in to remind ourselves of, we thought about this decision, and we decided not to make it, right? So if somebody else comes along and says, hey, we need a reentrant unit test runner, we can say, no, we already thought about that, and we literally said no, right? So we can do @vid IID, right? It's 110, and the time is 16 or 17 minutes by now. So the reason we're writing this code is because it is important to document what you do not do and why you don't do what you don't do, as well as what you do, right? So most people get the first part, right? We explain why we did what we did, but a lot of times you don't get explanations for why you didn't do something, right? Right? You have to explain your actions, but you never have to explain your inactions. Unless it comes to, like, bystander, what is it called? Bystander syndrome or something? Then maybe you do have to explain your actions. Why did you just let that person burn to death and watch them? Why did the whole crowd do that? Right? Maybe then you have to explain it. But anyways, yeah, we need this here. Also, speaking of bystander syndrome, I know it's not called that, so what is it actually called? Bystander syndrome. And hopefully that streamer below in the shortcuts never sees this and gets offended that is, I saw their stream, and that is how I tagged it, because was my initial impression. Did I tag it because I like what I saw? You're damn right. Bystander. Oh, actually, are my shortcuts off? My shortcuts are suspended. Hold on. So let's make sure. Bystander syndrome. How about... Yeah, if that one doesn't exist, the other one does not exist. How about bystander? Now, I believe bystander is probably not the way you spell it. But that's the way I spell it, so that's why I'll put in my shortcuts. Everyone watched while he died. Right, so there's something... I know I'm kind of getting off topic here, but nobody's watching anyways. So let's look that up really quick. I thought it was called bystander. Oh no, it's called bystander effect, right? Bystander effect? Bystander effect. Yeah, there's even a nice little image for it. Yeah, right here. Like, see this cop? I'm assuming it's a cop. Maybe it's not a cop. You know, I just see a baton. I assume it's a cop. You know, I don't know. Maybe it's a club. Maybe they're cavemen, right? But yeah, so that is actually what I'm looking for. The bystander effect, or bystander apathy, is a social psychological theory that states that individuals are less likely to offer help to a victim when there are other people present. First proposed in 1964, much research, mostly in the lab, has focused on increasingly varied factors such as the number of bystanders, ambiguity, group cohesiveness, and diffusion of responsibility that reinforces mutual denial. The theory was prompted by the murder of Kitty Genovese, about which it was wrongly reported that 38 bystanders watched passively. Recent research has focused on real-world events captured on security cameras, and the coherency and robustness of the effect has come under question. More recent studies also show that this effect can generalize to workplace settings, where subordinates often refrain from informing managers regarding ideas concerning the opinions. Blah, blah, blah. I get a better explanation for this. How about if you're getting stabbed to death and I don't know you? Well, I guess that's apathy, right? I guess that is apathy, right? I don't know you, therefore I don't want to save you, right? Why do I want to risk my life for some random person getting stabbed to death, right? Because that's a big risk, right? Like, if I know you and I like you, yeah, then okay, I'm going to try to stop this person from stabbing you to death. But if I don't know you, then why do I want to risk myself, right? Now, because if I were that kind of person, then wouldn't I just be a bodyguard? Like, right? Most people don't want to risk their lives for other people, right? I don't think so, right? Look out for number one. That's you. You are number one. Everyone is second, right? Now that might be like you might think that's a selfish way to look at it, but first of all, that's the way it really is. Like, people might not admit it to it, but their actions say otherwise. And also, think about how ridiculous it would be if we all looked after each other but not ourselves. And so instead of me eating, I'm going to wait for someone to realize I'm hungry, and then they're going to put food in my mouth, right? Like, I don't know. I think that, you know... Also, this is the reason why social psychology is kind of dangerous, because once you realize the way people really are, and the way people really are is not going to be, it's not going to be Disney Plus, right? It's not going to be a fairy tale. It's going to be ugly, right? The truth, the reality of human beings is not pretty. Political correctness and the actual science about, like, our actual psychology, yeah, like, it's not lined up. And in fact, no science is going to be completely lined up with whatever the current, what do you call it? The current politics is, right? Like, there's no, like, it would be, for politics to somehow magically be perfectly aligned with what is objective truth, like, in terms of science, like, think about that for a second, and think about the statistical improbability of that. That doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that if you have a political opinion that it can't be based in science. It just means that if you're towing a party line, if you're Democrat or you're Republican, you are like a hard... you vote straight Republican or you vote straight Democrat, then yeah, your opinions probably are not based in reality. That's all I'm saying. Okay, anyways, now that I've said horrible political stuff, and hopefully no one was watching when I did that, I can keep coding. So yeah, the re-entrant unit test runner and the test killer, I think that we'll put both in the same place. So we'll duplicate this line kind of twice, and we will say kill test will go here, and then we'll do re-entrant unit test runner, right? Unit test killer, unit test runner. And I am going to call it unit test runner for the commentary, because we actually don't, even though I was very specific of what kind of unit test runner, I actually don't want any kind of unit test runner. Make a note of that. I don't want any kind of unit test runner. Right? So, even though I kind of, like, was very specific about the type of unit test runner, in these comments and in the name. I actually don't want any kind of unit test runner because I've thought about it, and I think it's just going to make things harder than they should be. So yeah, we're going to say kill test and re-entrant unit test runner are going to be here. And what we're going to do is we're going to just take, let's collapse this. So pixel saver, we can put that back there. And we've added 2 more systems. So let's take this, go here, let's go XX, then let's go up here and let's paste. So there's 2 more systems, so we go right here like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. So 27, 28, and 29. And there's still more systems to kind of stub in place here. But I just want to consolidate these first because the ASCII list and whatnot, that's going to be in a totally different location. So I just want to do it one at a time or in 2 different distinct groups just to make this easier. So yeah, so now we have 29. So libchan cur is going to go up to 29. Ooh, that would be bad. So 29. Then we're going to look at libchan. We want to look at libchan top and bottom. We can close these. And in libchan top, we're going to put bottom over here. We want to look at libchan top and bottom. We also want to look at f macros. So let's look at f macros as well. So f macros, top and bottom. And is there something else we want to look at? We got f macros. Oh yes, and then we want to look at main. So in main, we also have to look at main in the functions file. These are all the files we need to touch in order to stub in another system, which is kind of crazy. But like I said, I like rigidity. I want rigidity and ease of following the code. That's the main concern here, not flexibility. So this is a very inflexible way to do things, but that's not my concern. My concern is being able to follow this code. So right here, we know we've added 2 more systems, so duplicate this twice. So we're going to say 27, 28, and 29. Then we'll say right here, this evaluates to 28 and 29. And then this right here will be a 29. Okay, so the compile limit always needs to match the highest number. And because we've inserted this at, like, right at the beginning, right? We've inserted 2 things right at the beginning. We've inserted, if we look at our list, right, we're going to insert, we're inserting kill test and re-entrant unit test runner right after silence, which means that we have a lot of numbers that are ending up shifted, right? So that kind of sucks. But let's just shift that over. So we got silence, and then what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this twice. So we'll just kind of duplicate, duplicate. And we know this is going to be, this is going to go up to 3. This is going to be 4. And then we just got to make these numbers as 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then these ones right here, they're going to be respectively kill test and unit test runner, right? So kill test and re-entrant UTR, re-entrant unit test runner, right? So if we look at our list again, make sure that's right. Kill test and then re-entrant unit test runner, right? So kill test and then re-entrant unit test runner, 2 and 3 respectively. So now we have to go through all this and be like 4. We got to change this to 5. Right, this is the annoying part, right? Because we have to go through all of the different systems. And the further back we add a system, the more horrible this gets, right? So wait, hold on here. We're about to change a 6 to a... Oh, no, that makes sense, right? Because we added 2. So, yeah, that does make sense that 6, we add 2, we get an 8, right? We add 2 to here, we get a 9. We add 2 to here, we get a 10. We add 2 to here, we get an 11. We add 2 to here, we get a 12. Add 2 to here, we get a 13. See how tedious this is? This sucks. Add 2 to here, we get a 14. Add 2 to here, we get a 15. Add 2 to here, we get a 16. Add 2 to here, we get a 17. Add 2 to here, we get a 18. Add 2 to here, we get a 19. Add 2 to here, we get a 20. Here we get a 21. Then a 22 by adding 2. 23. 24. 25. 26. 27. And by the way, there's no frictionless way to write code. It's just you have to choose. I think you kind of have to choose what kind of suffering you are okay with. And for me, this is annoying, but it's not hard, right? It's annoying and it's time-consuming, but it's not hard. And I would rather have something annoying and time-consuming, but easy, than something that than some type of complicated build system that usually makes my life easier, but it adds more mental indirection and makes everything harder to think about, right? And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, okay, so we're going to take 2do man again, and we're going to paste it twice. So this is the data file for both of those. So paste and, paste and paste. And for the data file, right, so remember, once again, we have the kill test. So kill test. And then we have the reentrant unit test runner, reen-utr. So kill test and reentrant unit test runner. And those respectively should be 2 and 3 in the code. And then 2do man should be 4, right? 2do man should be 4. So if we look at our code, make sure that's correct. Yeah, so 2 and 3 for kill test and reentrant unit test runner, and then 2do man is 4. Okay, cool. Just double checking, because if we screw this up, it's very time consuming to correct ourselves, right? Because that's just the case, right? So, so for this next thing, this is 5, so we have to add 2 to get to here, right? So add 2, and then we're going to keep on adding 2. So very redundant, very repetitive, very annoying. But, you know, sometimes so 6 plus 2 is 8. 7 plus 2, we got 9. 8 plus 2, we're at 10. Right, so annoying. I hate it. I absolutely hate this. But I've experimented with many different ways to put together a system. And so far, I'm really liking this way. So add 2, 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 add 2. Go over here, and we're just going to keep on adding 2 to every one of these things until everything is accounted for. So if we add 2 to 18, we're going to end up with 20. Okay. And then over here, if we add 2 to this, we're going to end up with 21. And this is going to give us 22, right? If we add 2 to 20, 22, 23, 24. Then we got 25. Then we got 26. Then we got 27. 28. And after 28, there should be 29, right? 29 systems. Okay, yeah, so that looks good. So 29 systems. The next thing we want to look at is, like, everything here is done. Now, there's a little bit of cruft where we kind of experimented with some other things. Well, actually, I think the reason why these exist is because Graquad and GenoWin were kind of refactored from different libraries, and their code is just a mess. and we kind of did these things to, like, yeah, we have some inconsistencies, irregularities in how we write our code, just because, you know, we have some pieces of code we took from other projects, and now we get this weirdness over here. So this whole section is just nonsense that I don't, this section, I don't ever want to add anything to here. Because now that I look at this, I'm like, this is, that, yeah. But anyways, it's there. So what are you going to do? So anyways, libchan bot. So we're going to take to-do man again. So we're going to take to-do man and we're going to duplicate it, right? We're going to do the same thing we've been doing. So we're just going to paste, and then change our language again and hope that was just a oddity. And we're going to take these and we're going to look at here and we say, okay, we got kill test first. So we're going to include kill test right here. Kill test. And then over here, instead of to-do man, this one is going to be re-entrant unit test runner, which we're not going to have any code for that. And then we have to remember over here, because I kind of forget this a lot, kill test and re-entrant unit test runner right here. So re-entrant unit test runner. Okay. Okay, so now that we have these put in here, we need to scroll down further and see the next place that we kind of looked at these. So yeah, we have these kind of things here. So we're going to take this chunk right here for to-do man. Once again, we're going to duplicate it twice, 1, 2. And then we're going to say, right here, this one is going to be kill test again. And this one here is going to be the re-entrant unit test runner. And we're not going to actually create a re-entrant unit test runner. We're going to stub it in to say, we thought about it, don't do it, right? So re-entrant unit test runner is 3, to-do man is 4, and then etc. And really, I shouldn't have done this. Let's go back. Let's not dig ourselves into a hole here. If we really want to change these, we can take this 3, right? And we can put the 3 where it belongs. So we can take all of this. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go here like this. And we're going to take the 3. We're going to go Control X, and then we're going to go like this. And then we can take the 3, and we can kind of paste it right down here, right? So 3 starts up here. And we can go Control V like that. And then bam. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And we have 2 other systems. So 27, 28, and 29, right? 29. And while we're here, I think it would be a lot easier if we could have comments. No, we don't really have much room for that, do we? To do that. Let's just keep it like... Well, it would be easier, though, wouldn't it? Like, if we could put, like, little dash kind of thingy over here while we're doing this. However, if we do that, the one problem with that is that these strings are too long. So, you know, I do want to address that eventually, so I'll just make a note here, like this, of a few of these. But I want to kind of do that. But for now, we'll just keep it like this. And so all the way up to 29, right? Up to 29, yep. And did we rename it correctly? Kill test and re-entrant unit test runner. And error messages are correct. Okay, excellent. So now let's go down here. We got one more thing. 27, 28, and 29. So we know that right here with to-do man, we got to go Control D, Control D. And one of them is going to be kill test. And the other one is going to be the re-entrant unit test runner. So re-entrant unit test runner. Once again, we can take all these numbers here. This is why I want to comment for this kind of stuff, because it makes it a little bit easier, right? Because then we can go up here to where 3 needs to be. We can go down here. We know there's 2 missing. We can paste here, and then we can go 28, 29, right? 28, 29. Done, right? Okay, so now that we have looked at libchan bot, we got to look at f macros. And f macros, we have 2 more things. Right now, I am kind of assuming that there's going to be a init none for both of these, because kill test is a lot like silence, where it's kind of a data only kind of thing, so it doesn't really need any initialization code. Reentrant unit test runner is just never going to have any code in it, because it's a stub for, say, don't do this, do not make this thing. So they're both going to have init none. So now that we know that, let's try to undef them in the correct order. So let's just duplicate this twice, and then copy kill test and re-enter unit test runner from here. Paste it in there. Bam, we have undeffed those two things. But this was the bottom file for the F macros. We need to look at F macros top. We should have done that first, but now here we are. So the first thought is we have shifted everything around, right? These things that are looking for specific numbers, they're all being included after the things we just inserted, which means that it changes these orders. So we have to add 2 to every one of these things. So 13 becomes 15, right? 14 becomes 16. 23 becomes 25. And 25 becomes 27. So let's check 27 really quick. It's just a little spot check to make sure that we've done this correctly. That's why I haven't removed this yet. Like, I haven't added any more of these because I don't think it's a good idea anymore. But I've kept it around just because it's nice to spot check things like this. But if you look at 27, we see tau sync. And if we look in here, we have 27 as tau sync. So the spot checking seems to be correct, right? So now, let's go down here. We want more init none functions, right? So this is where we're keeping our init none functions. So the first thing we're going to do for our sanity is we're going to go through each one of these functions in these blocks, and we're going to color them and make sure that the auto-generating code that we're using is actually accounting for all of these. And we're just going to do this because we're paranoid, and we have a lot of leverage with our auto creation script, but that leverage also means more destructive capacity, right? We have more creative capacity with this, but we also have more destructive capacity, right? Because if we delete this whole list, and then if we delete all this list, or we delete these things from this list, forget about it, and then reuse this script, right? That's a lot of destructive capacity. So anytime we have leverage, leverage works both ways, for and against us, unfortunately. We wish it could only work for us, but that's not the case. It's like a tool, right? A tool doesn't really have a moral alignment, so it's not, the tool is not aligned with my interests. I have to use it in my interests, right? So for this, the new things with init none are the kill test and the re-entrant unit test runner, right? So we can paste this right here. We can align it. These are the things that are not accounted for yet. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take all this stuff that was generated, and we're just going to regenerate it all. Okay, so we'll copy all this, copy it, and make sure our shortcuts are not suspended right now. Okay, they're not. So we're going to take this, we're going to copy it again just in case. Copy it to the clipboard, and then we're going to run our FARC. That stands for Find and Replace Clone. And then we're going to kind of clean this up a little bit. Remove some of that excess space. But yeah, now everything has been regenerated. I do trust this tool. Like, I've used this tool enough to where I trust it, where I'm not going to actually... I say that, and then I look at this, and I'm like... I said I trusted it, but then what's up with this? Did I just forget? Oh, no, I just forgot to delete this line here. So let's delete that. And then the init none kill test. I may have forgotten to delete the last line, too. No, that's good. Okay, cool. So, yeah, I've used this code enough to where I trust it, where I'm not going to inspect each one of these things visually. I trust the code that I wrote, because I've used it enough where I just know it works, right? And auto-generating our initializers here. And then we kind of, like, kept a little list thing here, but we haven't kept it up to date very well. But we can, but we know kind of where that goes relatively, so we could put that in here and say, you know what? kill test and re-entrant unit test runner. That's also why these are hashtags, because we got the numbering wrong. So this is our kill test. Unit test killer / silencer. So sil test for silence test doesn't really, doesn't really sound as good, or does it? So that's why we call it kill test. Re-entrant unit test runner. Do not make this code. Do not make this code. Do not make this code. Do not use this code. Do not make / use. Make or use. Do not make the code. Do not use the code. Okay, so with that, our F macros are undefined over here. Now, do we actually define macros for this? Yeah, we did. We just created the init none functions, right? That's all we wanted. Yeah, init none. And then in our functions file here, we have a big block where we're calling a lot of functions. Now, the problem with silence is that we want to call all of our initializers ahead of time. However, this is main right here. And I don't think we actually call silence init none, do we? I don't think we do. We should start to do that where, so right here, we're just going to say, AAC 2020, kill test init none. But we're not going to call it that. We're going to call it F macros, because it may or may not exist when we use it. And same thing for the re-entrant unit test runner, right? We want to do it in the order. Also, does silence have its own init none? No, it doesn't. So while we're here, let's put silence in here. Let's manually put it in here. So silence, kill test, and to-do man. We can put all those in here. So let's put silence before. So anywhere we see kill test right now, we can put silence. I know I'm doing it manually this time. Actually, no, manually it's going to take more time than just to rebuild them like this, right? So actually, let's do this. We're going to do kill test. We're going to do silence. We're going to do kill test. We're going to do re-entrant unit test runner. And we're going to do to-do manager. We're going to do all of these. We're going to make init none functions for them. And init none actually does take a number, right? It takes like we said 0, right? We're going to do the same kind of thing we're doing here. But the initialization is kind of split into two because some things depend on a window existing. And that's kind of why the initialization is split into two. Oh well. And then we might want to say, make a fmac, a find and replace section. So we have like do not extract, control F help. So we want to take something like this, right? So we're going to take something like this. We could paste this over here, right? So do not extract. And it's control F help. And we want 4 of these. They're all going to be init none. Right? We want system number 1, system number 2, system number 3, and system number 4, right? So we're kind of getting a little crazy here. But the idea is that when we initialize the system, we want to see where all the different systems are initialized and what where all the different systems are initialized, and possibly like, well, a Y? That doesn't make sense. So do not extract. Oh, this is control F help. Okay, control F help, yeah. So this thing here, we know where it is. is in the libchan, and then we want to put like a big multi-line comment around this, right? Because this is not bash script. We can't do this, right? That's probably also why GitHub thinks that my code base is a whole bunch of bash script, because I do this kind of stuff sometimes. Actually, I do it in quite a lot of places. It's probably looking at that and thinking, oh, of course, bash script, yes, yes. So, yeah, this will be f macros right here. And we're going to call these different init none functions for the subsystems. And that's fine, yeah, we can do that. So, now that we've done that madness, we're going to have to open up silence, kill test, reentrant, unit test runner, and to-do man, and we're going to have to stub in those init none functions, right? So, this we can save. Or actually, this is not, we're not going to, we do not fix this yet. So, silence, kill test, reentrant unit test runner, right? We don't have this yet. Silence, kill test, reentrant unit test runner, and to-do man, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. They're all going to have init none functions, we decided, right? So let's take all of this, delete it, rerun our script, rebuild all of this stuff. Right, so make that empty. Go over here, copy all of this. So this is the source code, the find key, the replace keys. Copy that. Then go fork to run our script, find and replace clone. And now we have the init none functions that we kind of stubbed in. Now if we're going to stub those in though, that means that we need to make sure that we remove those macros for those functions, right? So we need to go into fmacros bot, right? So fmacros bot, we need to look at that again and say, hey, we have some more fmacros for kill test, reentrant unit test runner. These are for init none, and we say, oh, we want 2 more, right? We want for silence and reentrant unit test runner and to-do manager. We want all of those to have, right? All these ones we want to put those in there. We want everything to be accounted for. Every single subsystem needs either an init function or an init none function, which I have not really been militant about doing that, or, well, I wasn't in the beginning, I think, is what happened. So now that we have that kind of stubbed in, we need to open up those classes and go into their function files. So silence.f, right? We want to open up that. We want to open up to-do manager, so to-do man. We want to open up the function file of that as well. We want to open up the reentrant unit test runner function file. And we also want to open up the kill test, right? The kill test silencer, kill test function. So we want to open up all these, and we want to put in the we want to stub in the init none. So paste init none. How about we try paste init none and see what we got there? Nice. So we got a little stub thing here for this. And so we can just take this and say AAC 2020 kill test init none, reserved for future use. Excellent. Done, right? Then we can go over here and we can say I don't want any type of test runner, and we can just say init none paste, and we can paste this. And you may be saying to yourself, you could accomplish this with templates, right? And you would be right. You would be right. You'd be absolutely right to say, yeah, you could just accomplish this craziness with templates. You'd be right. But we're not writing C++ code, and we're not trying to get really complicated build systems either, so we're not going to do any kind of that stuff. We're just going to do cut and pastes, and also like interfaces, right? One of the reasons for interface is just to help you make your code consistent, and that's great and all, but we are disciplined enough programmers, or at least we hope, that we can be consistent without needing an interface, right? Okay. So for this function right here, we're going to call it reneuter for reentrant unit test runner. And now you got those stubbed in. Now the next thing is, now these init none functions, do they do any logging? No, they don't actually do any logging. So because they don't do any logging, since they don't do any logging, we could definitely put them up here because they don't reference anything. But they're also things that I don't really want to look at either. So, but maybe knowing that the code doesn't need to be initialized is an important feature. And so maybe we want to put that at the top. It doesn't really matter. It's inconsequential, I think. But we should think about it. Because an init none sometimes will need to be changed into an init function, and then it does need to reference things that already exist. I think just putting it at the bottom makes more sense, because in case we want to turn it into an initializer, and also, because if we want to turn it into initializer, it's going to make more sense at the bottom. And also, yeah, I think that, you know, this information here, these functions are more important than a do-nothing function. So we'll put it at the bottom. So paste init none. And for this init none function, this is our to-do manager, so we'll call it to-do man. And then we're done. We got that init none function in. And then for the silent stuff, only data, no functions for now. Except for one thing. And what the hell? So for this one, we're going to call it silence. We might make this more obvious. We might want to obnoxiously surround this a bit. Give it some space and kind of center it. And be like, hey, only data, no function. Right, only data, no functions, and then do that, right? So we can kind of see. I don't know if we do. We want to get fancy? Okay, now we're just getting fancy. Now we're getting fancy. But now if I do that though, now I have to copy this and paste this, and make sure that they're the same amount of characters to make sure this is absolutely centered. Okay, absolutely centered. Sure. Okay, now I'm getting designy. I don't care, I'm having fun. Get into designy, could be writing code. Okay, so that's stubbed in. So we've stubbed everything in for these, not every system, right? We still got, the ASCII list and the ASCII commands. Those subsystems, and you may notice that I don't know if I've mentioned those yet, but I still need to get those stubbed in. But the first thing is we need to make sure that the project still runs, right? Because we stubbed these things in, we may have made some mistakes as we were doing that, right? So it's a very rigid, error-prone process. Oh, it looks like we got it on the first try. Or so we think, right? Let's just make sure it all runs still, right? If it still runs, then I'd say, yeah, we got it on the first try. Very surprising. Usually I always screw this up. And it's also very surprising because today is not coffee day. Today is not a day where I'm actually feeling motivated to do anything, right? I don't actually feel any. There's obviously a little motivation, but most of that motivation comes from it comes from a mental level of obsessiveness. It doesn't come from a mental place. It doesn't come from a emotional place where motivation comes from, right? Motivation is emotional. And right now I don't have much emotional motivation right now. I have this mental obsessiveness going on that's keeping me moving forward. So we're going to suspend the hotkeys. We're going to make sure that we can kind of swap between these default shaders and things. And sure, that looks like it's still working. So yeah, I would say that we did actually get it in the first shot, which is shocking. But it was also a lot of work to get that in, right? Like, we are at 1 hour. We're at 1 hour, and all we did was go, oh, look, stub some stuff in here, think about where things need to go, and we're at 1 hour. So this kind of system here is nice because we can subdivide and compile up to anything we want, and it doesn't involve any kind of build system, but when you're adding new things, it can be quite tedious and take a quite long of a time. Now, it doesn't always take an hour, right, because it takes more time when we have to shift everything over. And I'm sure I was ranting about something earlier, right? We were trying to think about where things need to go as well. We were thinking about the order. So there were some decisions, but I kind of feel like holy crap, 1 hour, what was I actually doing with that time? But that's also why I'm recording myself, because if I really want to know what I was doing with that time, I can look at it, right? So I can be like, um, yeah, my email is, let's look at a push-up screen. Is it there? No, I think it's only on my break screen that I have my email now. But, yeah, you can email me if you know my email. Um, so anyways, actually, you know what? Here, for our mis- that works. The code we stubbed in works. And the next thing we want to stub in is this thing called ASCII list and ASCII commands. And I want to think about where that goes. Well, first of all, it has to know about the keys. And we're thinking that it's going to work a lot like iKeybox and iMouseBox. So keyboard bindings, does it need to be aware of keyboard bindings? And I would say that it actually should be aware of keyboard bindings, or keyboard bindings should be aware of it. Let me think about it. Keyboard bindings. We may want keyboard bindings with it because we might like invoke the terminal commands using keyboard bindings. So even though it's like an I whatever thing, not I for interface, but I for input key whatever, right? I want to keep a similar naming convention. The other thing is I don't like, I'm not sure I want to name it this. iASCII list and iASCII commands, because these are really similar. I could see myself getting the namespaces wrong. So I really want something like blah, 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 CMD, right? I want something with CMD and list, right? List would be nice. So if we look at the naming convention here for the key boxes, I, key, IM, how about iKey, right? So iKey, right? So that, therefore it has an association. Therefore it could have an association with this, right? iKey, right? Because it's like an iKey box, but it has a more specific usage. So we could call it iKey. And then we just have to know that iKey list and iKey CMD are, they're ASCII, right? They use ASCII to work, because we're supposed to keep it as simple as possible, right? So we can say that these are one and the same, the list, right? And you can see like why I wouldn't want to do this, right? Because this is, what the heck is this? It almost looks like a little face, right here, little face. So yeah, these are the next two things we want. And we want to put them somewhere. But before we put them somewhere, let's open up new files and create the stubs for them, right? So, so iKey, well actually let's take this, let's copy this. Scrolling window of recorded ASCII keyboard inputs to help create a hidden console where we can type lengthy, non-lengthy, multi-key shortcuts / commands. Kind of. And then this other thing, right, this other thing is going to looks at iKey lists and sees if there are any commands that it can execute. Include after iKey lists, as it needs to reference iKey lists, right? So yeah, this is going to be iKey CMD dot data or functions, doesn't matter. And this other thing here, we're going to save this as iKey. Do we say list for that? Did we just screw that up? Did we just do that? iKey CMD. No, we didn't. Okay. Okay. iKey list dot data. Okay. Then we want to take all this and file new, paste this. I input keyboard list function file. So this is going to be ikeyList.f. Then we want one more, right? So we want ikeyCMD input key commander. Technically, it's more like a commander function file. So ikeyCMD.f. Right? So we got these 4 files: ikeys.cmd.f, ikeylist.f, ikeycmd.data, ikeylist.data. Okay, so now that we have those, we're going to stub those into place. And are we going to work on those, or are we not? I don't know if we're actually going to work on them. But it's a place that, if I want to implement that later, it's going to be in place. If I was thinking about, doing these, I eventually want to do them to the point where it's worth stubbing them into place. And also, I'm not feeling too motivated to get much more work done, so it's like, how about we do a little bit of busy work, a little bit of those time-consuming things that we don't want to do, that take time, that feel like a waste of time, that they're just busy, mindless work. Why don't we do the busy, mindless work right now? Well, we're kind of feeling like, hey, I don't feel like doing any code, right? Because that's how we're feeling, so let's go back into here. Let's close that. And we have to change this order again, right? This order of our stuff. So iKeybox, iMousebox. We were thinking that the key bindings that we might want the ikeyCMD to kind of know about the key bindings, right? So we're thinking that the best place to insert this stuff is going to be right here, right after key bindings. We think that this console that does not know, this windowless console, we're basically trying to create a windowless console, right? So let's take this, and we can also tie these together, right? So we could say ikeylist, right? The list, and then the commands we're going to execute on that list. Right, we could say, let's put some X's here. Or something. Or keep it blank for now. Command console list. Hidden. So the reason why it's called iKey is because it is the way it's going to be coded is going to be similar to iKeybox. So we're kind of naming it more in relation to the implementation rather than what its usage is. And that's okay because we're doing data-oriented design, and we can say stuff like that. So let's call it HID terminal. HID terminal list. HID terminal exec, right? So we have a list, and then we have also execution. So I almost feel like calling it HID list, yeah, and HID is exec is actually kind of nice, but it's nice, but we already have it, right? So we're already doing this. So if we wanted to, we could go down here and say, hey, that was an interesting thing. Documentation. Do we want to put it down here? Control F help. I don't know where we want to put that. I kind of like keeping this kind of slim, right? Because this is the main file that people are going to look at when they look at the project. So I wouldn't want to do anything there. So we just kind of, if that's a little thought that we have and we just want to note it down somewhere, the best place to put it is in our like main kind of documentation dump and just say, I don't know, hid list and hid exec. Right, we could just put that there as a little commentary. Bam! And then hid list. A nice name for means hidden list. A proposed name for a system. We went with a name that reflected the internal code rather than the use case. Actually, that's for both of them. This comment applies to both hid list and hid exec, right? So hid list means hidden list, and then hid exec, and then hid list. We decided that's going to be called, we're going to call that iKey list, right? Keyboard listener. And then hid exec is going to be iKey CMD, right? So there's still a lot of similarity between these two things, but now it's not as similar as, oh, there's, you know, only one letter difference. One letter difference is kind of bad. This is all right, 7 letters, so we can't split it 50-50, but roughly, you know, a 50% difference between this token and this token. So I'm okay with that. I think that's okay. And it also highlights the similarity. Like, I actually do want to intentionally highlight the similarity between both of these and say, oh, both of these start with iKey. Isn't that interesting? Oh, there's this other thing called iKeybox. Is there a reason that maybe they have the exact same prefix on them? And there is. Okay, so now that we have that, we can close this documentation file and forget about that thought. And now we can start trying to stub in this thing here, right? So, we just go 9. So we gotta go after keybind. So we're gonna go after keybind. After keybind, we're going to insert this stuff, right? So we're going to take all of these numbers, we're gonna cut them, and then we're gonna paste them back down right here. Remember, leave 2 empty slots, because we just added 2 new things again. So we got 29, 30, and 31. The next thing we might want to do is say, you know how we have these highlighted, these ones when we're working on that refactoring? We might want to go here and say, okay, these are the things we're refactoring. Let's make note of those. And make note that they are 10 and 11. That's important. And now we're up to 31 here. So in here, this code, we want to change this to 31. We're going to add 2, 31. Okay, that all checks out. So let's close all of these stub files. And once again, we have to open up all those files for controlling what we're working on. So libchan top, we want to open up libchan bot, and fmacros top, and whatever. So we got the top files. Let's open up fmacros bot. Let's open up libchan bot. Let's open up main/f. Like, all these things need to be open, right? So let's put the bottom files over on the right, as well as the function files. So bottom files on the right, as well as the function files. And we got everything in the correct windows. So let's look at libchan top and start our refactor. So the first thing we got to note is that it comes after keybind, right? So we're going to go through here, and it's going to be less tedious than last time, because we don't have to start from the dead beginning like last time. So 29, 30, and 31, right? And we'll also sanity check ourselves on that. Like, is it 31 systems now? So 31, this matches up here, 31. Let's go look at this again. Yes, 31 systems total. And yeah, we gotta keep on going through here though. So for the 9th system, right, we can skip all the way this, and iKeybind is we're gonna want to add two new things, right? So we're gonna take iKeybind and we're just gonna duplicate it. So duplicate, and no, just duplicate it twice. And this one right here, we're gonna say iKey list, right? We create a list first, and then later we want to execute over that list. Now, you might say, well, we have a function file and a data file for that, so why not make it one system, right? Because these systems are kind of like tightly bound. And the reason why I'm going to make them two distinct systems is because I want to adhere to do one thing and do it well. And even though the things they are doing are very tightly coupled behaviors, right? Create a queue of all the letters that are pressed and then execute commands based on what letters are pressed, right? Very tightly coupled behavior, but very distinct responsibilities. And whenever I can isolate distinct responsibilities, then I want that distinct responsibility to be in its own file, right? Especially because even if we try to segment by do one thing and do one thing well, most of the times there's going to be more code than we anticipate rather than less code. For example, PAINT5D is an excellent example where it's do one thing and do one thing well is like, we ended up splitting it into two files, one for CPU side code and one for OpenGL code. So anyways, iKey list and iKey CMD. And this is the data file. And we just want to add 2 to everything again, right? So 9 becomes 10. Well, that 9 becomes 10. Sorry, we just had 1. This one becomes 11. Okay, now we're actually adding 2 to everything, right? So 10 becomes 12. 11 becomes 13. Alright, some more tedious kind of nonsense here that sucks, but oh well. Like, I don't want to do it. I do not want to do this. But the thing is that I want the code to be rigid. I want the code to be rigid and easy to follow. Like, rigid, easy to follow, and straightforward. And everything's a trade-off in life. We cannot make our code straightforward and easy to follow and also make it abstract, right? Abstract is the opposite of easy to follow. So when you add abstractions, the code gets harder to follow. Now, maybe you're smart enough for the mental indirection, so you say, no, it's not a big deal. But eventually, what's going to happen is you're going to end up nickeling and diming yourself to death. Though we could kind of say that that's what we're doing here with our code, right? Nickeling and diming ourselves with a whole bunch of things that need to be chained together instead of using some type of fancy template or build system. But yeah, make sure we're always adding 2, because we're adding 2 more systems. And 27 becomes 29. Okay, yep, 29. Okay, 28 is where we're getting to 30. So we're rolling to 30, so we gotta be a little bit more careful here. 30, okay, and this is gonna be 31, because we're gonna add 2. 31. 31, okay, so now we're at, 31 is the last one. Okay, cool. So we want to do the same thing with the next piece of code, right? So we're going to go all the way to 9 and find keybind. It's already highlighted for us. That's nice. So we're going to take it, and we're going to paste it twice. So 1, 2, paste it twice. And then we're going to say the list needs to be first. So we're going to do iKey list. And then the next one after that is going to be called iKey CMD, right? We could call it iKey exe, but I want to call it CMD because it's like a command line. Now that just comes from me being a Windows person. Like maybe if I was more of a Linux person, I would call it TER for terminal. But CMD seems like a more commonly understood abbreviation, if that makes sense. So this 9 needs to be changed to a 10. This other 9 needs to be changed to 11. And then from here, we just start adding 2 to everything, right? So this 10 becomes a 12, 11 to a 13, 12 to 15, 15, no, that would be adding 3. What am I doing? Adding 2 to here. Now we get 15. This is 16. This one here, 17. Okay, this one here, add 2, we get 18. Add 2 to here, we get 19. Okay, then we got to roll back over to 20, or not roll over, but we have to change 2 digits rather than 1, which makes it a little bit more tedious because I'm trying to operate the mouse and the keyboard at the same time, and that can be difficult, right? Because I just kind of hackishly doing things with one hand here. So 21, this is 22, right? Add 2 to here. And this is, I did not have to change both digits at the same time like that. 22, 23. This will be 24. This will be 25. This will be 26. This will be 27. This will be 28. And this is 29. Then you got 30. Yeah, there should be 30 and 31, right? So we should be, right after this, the next one should be the last one, right? This should be 31 right here. And we should be done, right? And if we're not done, then we made a mistake somewhere. Okay, hold up here. This is what I get for talking at the same time as doing this. 28, 29, 30, and 31. Okay, I didn't make the mistake too soon. Okay, I just made it at one place. So 26, 27, 28. This is 29. Okay, this is 30. And this one down here is 31. So that worries me because, right, if I screw this up, I mean, I have a lot of redundancies in place to make sure that if I do screw up this tedious error-prone thing that I'm going to see it. So 31, let's try to scroll through here. 31, 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, and then back to 9, keybind. Cool. So let's look at the other one. 31, 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, and then back to 9 for keybind. So I am pretty confident that we got that right. So let's look at F macro's top. So what have we shifted around, right? So we started at 9, which means that anything after 9 gets shifted around. And, well, guess what? These are all numbers that are after 9, so that means we're going to have to add 2 to all of these, right? So 15 is going to become 17. 16, if we add 2 to that, it's going to become 18. 25, if we add 2 to that, it's going to become a 27. 27, if we add 2 to that, is going to become 39, right? 39? No, 29. What am I doing? 27, 28, 29. Yep, 29. So then we can also cross-check again and be like, is TauSync system number 29 now? And we can look here, we see, yep, TauSync is system 29. Okay. So now we're looking at this, and I don't actually know what kind of initializer function I need. So let's think about this. I think we really, when in doubt, init none is better, because that means we're not initializing, we're not like setting anything up, we're not like mallocking any memory, right? If we have an init none, then we know we're not doing any type of malloc nonsense or whatever, right? There's less complexity, right? If we see an init none, we go, oh, it's not that complicated. There's no weird system setup we have to worry about. So I think that unless we need some type of initialization logic, if we don't know how the system needs to be initialized, and there's no obvious reason to have any type of initialization logic, then we should just start off with init none. And I think that by zeroing out memory to start with, that's really all the initialization kind of logic we need. And we can just zero out memory as we declare it. We don't need to, that's one thing we don't have to declare in a function. So I would say these are going to be init none functions. And this is our init none code. So let's go here and say, well, where is this relatively, right? And so it's somewhere between to-do man and CPU info, right? So if we look at our thing here, we got to-do man up here, and then CPU info, or CPU uniform info. Right, yeah, CPU uniform info, where the U is shared. Well, yeah, so it is, it's in between these, right? So we need to add it before CPU uniform info, but after the I keybox and to-do man and all that stuff. So if we look at our list, they both need to be added right here. Right here is where we'll add them. To be in the correct order, right? To be in the correct order. To maintain the order in which the systems are actually included in the project, this is where it needs to be. It's not necessary, right? If we get this ordering wrong, it's not going to break anything. But we want to impose a stricter ordering than the compiler requires, because the stricter we can be, the less mistakes we're going to have, if that makes sense. Now, that could be a kind of a dogmatic thing where, is that really true? And I do think it's true, right? Because the whole reason we use stricter compiler settings is so that less things will go wrong, right? But this isn't really a compiler setting, so does that analogy, does that carry forward to not just only stricter compiler settings, but just having more rigidity in your code? And I would say yes, because the extreme example would be the compiler does not require us to indent our code, right? We could paste everything in a gigantic one-liner, right? And then that would probably be pretty error-prone, right? So yes, I would say that I don't know how impactful it is, but it has an impact, and I think it's important. Okay, so anyways, let's call this ikey list and ikey cmd. ikey cmd. ikey list, ikey cmd. Then we just want to rebuild this, right? So we're just going to take this code here. We're going to copy it to the clipboard, copy it. And we're just going to, we're not going to double check, like we just edited this code earlier. I'm not about to double check it again. And then we're going to run fark on this. So I am going to copy this to the clipboard again, just in case though, because I'm paranoid. So copy that. And we're going to run fark on it again for find and replace clone. Oh, actually, hold on, maybe we're not. I suspended my hotkeys, so I'm not. Okay, we're going to copy this to the clipboard for real this time. Copy. And now we're going to run fark on it now that our shortcuts are active. And now we've regenerated all of these functions. These init none functions. And also, think about this. Because adding a new system is kind of costly. Well, actually, adding a new system is not that costly, I don't think. The costliness kind of comes from... Well, it's still costly. It's always costly to add another system because of the amount of work that goes into plugging it into this kind of buildish system that I have. But because it's such a costly operation, that means it dissuades me from making systems on a whim. Like, I have to actually kind of really be kind of gung-ho and enthusiastic about, yeah, I definitely want this system. Let's go through the effort of adding it, right? It's not like a few clicks and then bam, it's in there. It's actually some effort, right? So the tools you use to write your code are going to influence the outcome of how your code looks, right? So by having this, so I don't mind the resistance or the friction required in doing this because it's actually going to dissuade me from putting subsystems in at a whim. Like, we got a lot of subsystems, but they're not put in at a whim. Like, I think about it deeply before I do it. Deeply kind of sounds kind of pretentious, but I do think about it. I do a substantial amount of thinking about it before I just add it in, right? Like, these were notes in my shower for, like, at least a week before I decided, yeah, we're definitely going to do this. Okay, so for these other things, we know that they're between here, so we can go Control-D, Control-D. And we know that this one is going to be ikey list, right? We create a list, and then we want to run functions on it with a hidden terminal. So ikey cmd, ikey list, and ikey cmd. Then for here, a little bit more complicated. We got to go find, right? It's after number 9. 9 was the keyboard bindings. So keybind right here, we want to add that right there. So if we look at our list, make absolutely sure. So we see that we got ikeybind right here. So right after ikeybind, or sorry, not ikeybind, let's just call it keybind. But after keybind, we want to paste this twice. And let's highlight this to make note that this is what we need to change. And this is going to be called ikey list, right? We want to build the list first. And then after we've built the list, we want to execute functions on it in a hidden terminal. So ikey cmd is actually our hidden terminal. It's a weird name, but the name was chosen so that the name kind of reflects its association with the ikey box and iMouse box in terms of how it works. And then also they start with ikey list and ikey cmd so that you know that this list and the CMD actually go together. Though it also could kind of confuse you because you see ikeybox and you're like, well, shouldn't ikeybox be grouped with the list and the CMD? So that is kind of confusing that they're not next to each other. But they are in relative proximity, though, right? So if we look at this, we got some relative proximity, or we got iMouse and ikeybind, right? So they're all key whatevers, so it's not like, right, we got native key over here, right? So the exact ordering of a lot of this stuff does not matter, but we still want to pick some type of optimal ordering. There's no one perfect solution, but we want to pick a decent solution at the very best. So something that we actually kind of gave a little bit of thought to, right? Okay, so now here, we have the same kind of thing here. So we're checking the indexes here, right? So like I said, we have redundancies in case we get things wrong. And this redundancy exists because it's a lot easier to see in the high-level overview that we got numbers out of sequence than it is in libchan top, right? In this file, like it's a lot harder to see that things are out of order because it's much more. The density of this in terms of the numbering is much less dense. We have more density here, right? So with this, we got to change these. All we're going to do is so I pasted this in here. Okay, cool. So we're going to take these numbers, and we want to just cut and paste from here, right? We want to just take these, cut and paste, 1, 2, and we just want to paste over here, leave 2 empty spots because those spots we've not created the numbers for those yet. Ooh, that kind of worked. Yeah, let's look at it really closely. Okay, just things shifted around when I pasted it. It got me worried, but it doesn't look like there's a problem. So this is 30 and this is 31. And now that's in place. And eventually we want to clean this up. We want to do a little cleanup after we get this in here, where we make it a little bit more conducive to cutting and pasting like that, because it's a little bit, you gotta be careful. And then ikeybind. So ikeybind, right after ikeybind, we have 2 entries. So we can go Control-D, Control-D. And then we can take ikey list and ikey cmd. Paste them right there. And then we can take these numbers and kind of scrub them out. And this is why I want commentary like this in the code above, because it makes it a little bit more simple to do what I'm doing right here. Or at least I think it does. Okay, so there we go. So now that is redone. Last thing, functions file. So in the functions file, we're going to do the init nuns for these things at the beginning of main. So where is main? Main should actually be at the bottom of the file, right? Because it needs to reference these other functions. And we have this do not extract, and we've kind of like created more init none functions. But strangely, these names are wrong. What the heck? Yeah, these names are wrong. That was stupid of me. I copied 4 chunks from... Yeah, these are the ones we want, right? So we want it so that we can highlight the... Like, if we're searching for these, we can find them, right? If we search for the AAC 2020 ones, we don't see where they're being... We're not going to directly be able to see the call sites to these functions because we're using some indirection with the macro, right? So we want to mitigate that damage by doing this. But that also doubles the code here. But I don't really care because now all of the working code is consolidated, and if we didn't do this indirection, then we would have to wrap every single one of these calls in if-def, depending on what library was included, and that just feels like it would wreck the flow of this, so that's why that's not the case. So, yeah, so we have f macros ikey lists, init none. And then we have f macros ikey cmd, init none. Right? And then really, missing right, so here we have some missing init nuns in here. And then there's also some probably down here as well, but we absolutely know that there's some stuff between here that's missing. I'm not going to deal with that right now. Code works. First priority is working code, and I'm just tired of this. Okay, so now that we have that, did we stub in our init none functions? And I think the answer to that is a no. So let's go open up the ikey whatever things we made. So let's type ikey. We got ikey box. So we want ikey cmd and ikey list. We want the function files. Let's open both of those. And yeah, they don't have any init none functions. So let's do paste init none. And here we're going to say ikey cmd init none. And then over here we're going to paste init none again. Paste init none. And this one is going to be called ikey list init none, right? So this is the public initializer for the keyboard listener. It's not really a keyboard listener. It's actually a list of ASCII keys. But that was kind of confusing. We could make an AKA here. AKA, we had 2 names, right? We had, let's look in our comments really quick. So we had 2 names that we wanted in our comments. Hid list and hid exec, right? So we could make a note of that, right? Say, hey, AKA hid list, AKA iASCII list, right? So those were 2 other proposed names. One, 44, 20, 28. So these were, so hid list and iASCII, IIL, whatever the heck. These were 2 proposed names for this system. It might be good to note what those proposed names were, because why? Well, I think because it gives us a little bit more context, right? Like I think, you know, when I was writing code using actual kanji, I had the assumption or the hypothesis that letting people make assumptions about your code was a bad thing, right? Like RTFM. But now I think that no, you need to let people make assumptions, because having them front load the entire code base, like if you had to read all of these different systems and all the documentation for all of these systems before you could begin to even grasp what was going on, I think that would actually be a bad thing. And that's how I was writing code when I was doing it in kanji. I'm like, well, by using a kanji, you obfuscate what it actually does. Like, you actually have to read the file name. You actually have to read the contents of the file to figure out what it does if you use a kanji for the class name, right? And the idea was we could make very terse code that way, and we could also make code where people would not be allowed to assume anything. And because I think, you know, the whole, if you assume, you make a ass of me and you or something like that. But now, from my experience, from my experimentation, I'm going to say, no, let people assume. Assuming can still be a bad thing. But when you're trying to build up a mental picture, the more things you can assume through context clues, I think the better. So we're going to make a note of that. And then we're going to copy this commentary and put it in here as well. We'll kind of change it around, though. So this is the function file, so it's called IKeyCMD, right? So we're going to take this thing here. We're going to put it here. And then it's not called hidList. It's called, did we call it hidTerm or something? hidList and hidExec. hidExec. But you know what? hidTerm for hidden terminal, that's also a good one. I like that, so we're gonna keep that there as well. So these are different synonyms you could think of. When you're looking at IKeyList, you could think of it as hidExec or hidden terminal or input. Did I really do that? Oh no, it's actually, this is wrong. That's a typo. Input ASCII list, right? Like that. So let's make a note of that. Did we actually screw that up in here as well? It doesn't look like we did. Typo of input ASCII list, right? And the thing is, I couldn't even tell it was a typo, and that's why I didn't want this, because this doesn't read very well, if that makes sense. It's kind of weird to say that my abbreviations don't read very well when they're so weird, but it doesn't read well, right? So we're gonna make both of these entries, because I think I may have made the mistake in two different places. And then we're also gonna do this. Input ASCII list is IKeyList, right? And input ASCII C is IKeyCMD, right? So it's ASCII list and right, input ASCII list, input ASCII commander, right? Basically, that's what I mean. Okay, so I just wanted to make a note of that. And we're still gotta do this. So we had this other thing that we liked, right? So we were doing... Yeah, this is wrong, right? Yeah. So this is input ASCII, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So input ASCII. So yeah, we screwed that up. So let's change the timestamp here. So the timestamp is 1 hour, 49 minutes, and 30 seconds. And let's explain this again for the camera. It's called IKeyCMD, but you could think of it as hidList or IASCII list. Those are other contexts that kind of make sense, like context clues. And I think now, in retrospect, yes, letting people assume what the code does because of the name is an okay thing to do. When I was doing Kanji Coder, I didn't think that was the case. Anyways, so repeated myself for the camera. Let's go over here and change the timestamp to this as well, because we kind of screwed some things up. So 1 hour, 50 minutes. And I can also see where the time goes in terms of documenting things. Like, a lot of time goes into just documenting stuff. And I'm hoping that the documentation will be solid, and I'm hoping this documentation is going to be one of the things that helps this engine be preferred over other engines that do the same thing, right? When people start copying me, I want some reason for people to want to stick with me. And the reason you should stick with me is because my code is immaculate. Anyways, so to explain this again, iKeyList could also be thought of as hidden exec or hid term, as in hidden terminal or hidden executor, right? And so it's going to be for a hidden terminal. The reason why we call it iKeyList is because we want to enforce its association with iKeyBox, and the way it functions is going to be very similar in nature to how iKeyBox functions. So basically, we've named iKeyList and iKeyCMD with names that more reflect their internal workings, which would be a no-no for object-oriented programming where you want to encapsulate things, but we're doing data-oriented design, so naming something based on the internal workings, the internal implementation, I think is completely okay. And like I said, I don't want abstractness, I want clarity, right? Abstract is the opposite of clarity, right? Abstract code lets you be more flexible and make changes faster. That's not what I want. I want code that is just very rigid and very clear, right? And it's a trade-off because it's going to take me longer to code stuff. For example, we're at 1 hour 52, and we finally stubbed everything in, and we're ready to go. And so let's try to run this and see if I screwed up anywhere this time. Error, tail order fail keybind. So this time I didn't get perfect score here in terms of refactoring, but it's an easy fix. So if we go on libchanbot and we look at the tail order fail, we can look at the numbers. And the first thing that sticks out to me is, well, we renamed it. We reordered the numbers, but we didn't change the we didn't actually change the names, right? These all say iKeybind, right? So for that fix, all we got to do is do iKeyList, right? And so it's a simple, trivial fix, right? And that's awesome. But just because it's a trivial fix and it's really easy doesn't mean that we don't want this redundancy here, because we made the mistake here, but we could also make the mistake here. Now, we'd be totally in trouble if we made the mistake here and here in the exact same way, because then the code wouldn't catch us at compile time, and weird things might happen. But right, this list here, the list on my right, the list on my left, and this file, their lists all need to agree with each other, right? There's a lot of redundancy there. So let's give that a run and see if maybe, if we're lucky, that was our only mistake, or if we've done more stupid stuff. Oh, so not too bad, not too many mistakes for not wanting to do this. And we're going to run this, make sure it works, and then we're also going to open up our, like, where did all the time go screen, because this took about an hour as well, right? It took about an hour to kind of rant and explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. And now the question is, would this go faster if I wasn't talking so much? And I'm going to say yes, but also the slower you do something, the less mistakes you're going to make. And the less mistakes you're going to make because you have more time to think about it, right? Your mind has a little bit more time to wander as you're thinking things through. Right? You're going to do less things reflexively and kind of think about it a little bit more. So yeah, that works, and we kind of stubbed in these systems, and that's all I wanted to do for today. So let's go over here to our random screen of Go look at that for a second. So language, let's go in here and say, we should have some notes. We got summary, about, conceptual types, diagrams. So these top things, we got about, conceptual diagrams, time costs. Developer time costs. That is a very weird section to have, right? To have the section called developer time costs, but we're gonna do it. So, also, underscore these, because about, right, so this is our big about. We got a misc about. We got these conceptual types are underscored. That's why we want it like that. So this is developer time costs. And we just want to make a note of some things in terms of developer time costs. One, stubbing in a new subsystem. One hour to, actually no, the minimum, the range seems to be out about when we're looking at the math for a single system. The range, I think, we batch two things together, and batching two things together makes me think that it really took as long as doing one, but I could be wrong. But let's just say that the minimum time it should take is probably 30 minutes. The maximum time is like 2 hours, right? From what it seems like. So we could say right here, this is the task. Estimated time, right? So we have a task and we have an estimated time, right? Really, we should kind of keep this justified all the way over here, I think. Because, you know, we might want a phrase that is somewhat longer than that. And that also looks a little bit better, doesn't it? So we got the task and the estimated time. Now we're just getting designy. But the thing is that, okay, we got the code working. We got the code compiling. I really wanted to kind of shove more things in the README just for fun, to be like, you know what? Let's just see what the README looks like on GitHub, because, you know, for funsies, right? Like, we want to have some fun. And yeah, now we're at 2 hours, so it would be nice to look at the GitHub and just be like, hey, what's our README look like? Is it this massive thing that has a whole bunch of diagrams and notes in it, right? So, yeah, so let's get bash here. Sorry, my auto commit script kind of came up, and I was looking at it, seeing what it was doing. Git status. Git add dot. Git commit dash am. Stubbed in for subsystem took 2 hours. So once again, people say, don't write about what you did, write the commit message about why you did it. I totally disagree with that. Just write something useful, right? Don't be so granular as to have some very specific metrics for what you put. Just make it useful. Make a useful message. In this case, I didn't say why I did something. I said what I did, which to me, yeah, like to me, when looking at the high level overview of what files were changed, it would take me a little bit of time to figure out what was done. So I don't think it's people say, oh, you can just look at the version history to see what was done. I'm like, no. I want a high level overview of what was done. That's what's important to me. I almost think that saying why something was done is the thing you shouldn't do, because if we want to get picky about it, because if I write code that does something, it's probably pretty obvious as to why I wrote that code that does that thing, right? I made an automobile. It can drive from one place to another. Do we really need to explain why I made an automobile, right? You know? I made a rocket. We can launch it, and we can blow up people we don't like. Do we need to go into the why we did it, or is it more important to say what we did? I think it's probably more important to say what we did. I think the why is more implied than what we did, I think. I don't know. I just think that's a stupid rule. I don't know who told me that, but I'm basically trash talking them. So anyways, besides that, I think it might be useful, maybe, in the future to start saying it, like, how long certain things took in the commit message. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not going to keep a strict rule about what should be... I'm not going to keep a strict rule about what should be pushed up, because... I'm not going to keep a strict rule about what should be pushed up, because I think that is far too granular. I like things at a very coarse level. It's also kind of oppressive too, I don't know. So, we'll push that up to kanji code. Hey, let's take a look at that and see what that looks like. So, get AAC 2020 URL. I don't know if I actually did a shortcut for that. No. So, let's make a shortcut for that. So, get AAC 2020 URL, or get AAC 2020 URL. I might have a shortcut for that, though. Nope. GitHub web URL AAC 2020. Oh, because it's AAC. I know why, because it's get AAC URL. Okay. I'm just entering a shortcut right now. So for next time, I will have this when I type it. Okay, so let's look at the GitHub and see what this looks like. So we got, like, stuff, and then we have... Did we do this right, or did we screw this up? We got a nice little index. Ooh, that's nice, index. I'm liking that. Index, about, developer time cost, conceptual types, diagrams, right? So we got, like, a little thing here. And then if we scroll down, we got the diagrams, right? And then we have developer time cost just hidden there. We got some conceptual types. And then we got this stuff. I feel like almost we should have the... Okay, what the hell? Let's go look at our README file for a second and say something is not indented correctly. Let's close this, and this, and this. Scroll down to the bottom, and we added, like, this diagram here, right? Oh, yeah, so that is... We screwed up just that, and then everything went to hell, right? Yep, that is exactly what went wrong. So, bam! We put that there, we changed that one thing. That one little thing. And then we get bash here. Get bash. Get add dot. Get commit dash am. Readme fix. Alright, so the commit message is more work than the change. But I think it's going to be worth it. I think that's all we needed to do. So let's take a look at this. Let's refresh this and hope that... No? Okay, well, let's take a closer look at that README. So where does it go wrong? Where does it start going wrong? We have a code section, and the pixel payload for tile sizes is not this. And then right after that, everything seems to be going to hell. So let's look at that a little bit closer and see if maybe we are, there's some type of white space problem probably in the README. Let's close some of these as well. Did I really close my... You know, it's because I'm conditioned by... I've been conditioned by Chrome to say that, oh, if I close all my tabs, my stuff shouldn't close. Or am I? I don't know. Either way, bad habit of closing my editor when I close a whole bunch of files. Or does it do that? Hold on. Okay, no, it doesn't do that. It's me. It's me doing that. Okay. Let's open up the README and figure out what's going on here. Because we were so close to having such a nice thing, and then... So my guess is that, yeah, so my guess is we don't have any spaces here, right? We actually have to add spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Actually, add those spaces in. Another thing is that maybe we did that, but then the editor was like, screw you, right? The editor could have said, screw you to us, and just got rid of the spaces, right? Okay, so now that's in there. We're going to just repeat everything we did. Git add dot, git commit dash am, readme fix 02, git push GitHub master, right? So I'm just sick of this, so I'm just going to get it working. And that's to GitHub, so we need to push up to kanji coder, else we're not going to see this. Git push kanji coder. Let's push that up to kanji coder. And so now we're expecting that, like, this is complete gibberish, isn't it? It's like, look at that. What the heck does that mean, right? No clue. Oh, but we have timestamps for explanations, so that'd be nice. Oh, then this looks... Yeah, so let's refresh this. And see if we finally fix this. Yeah, excellent, excellent. So now we got this nice little diagram, right? So yeah, I got these nice little diagrams. Now you might notice that it looks like we have a lot of wasted space on the screen, and that's because my code is actually designed for a vertical monitor. And even though now I'm doing the streams in a horizontal monitor, I decided it's still designed for a vertical monitor. Also, since I'm doing the streams, I decided, hey, well, since I'm doing this, since I already have this very short column limit, I can take advantage of that and kind of do split screen nonsense here and keep everything kind of zoomed in nicely, and so that's kind of what I went with. Okay, so yeah, this looks nice. It looks nice. We got a nice little index. Looks good. Looking good. Everything in here is pretty sparse. Got the logo. Can I click the logo and see it? That'd be, oh yeah, look at that. Awesome. So, you might be wondering why the Deck 10 logo is in here, or what the heck is the Deck 10 logo. And I actually started a corporation for selling stuff. I actually made these I have patents to my name. Well, actually, another patent on the way, but one patent has already been granted for modular designer furniture. And I decided I'm going to use this logo, and depending on how much you've been listening to me, or where you know me from, it'll be interesting to see what people associate this logo with, right? So, it's a logo for my coding stream, but it's also a logo for the business. So, I thought that would be fun. And yeah, I'm done here. I don't really feel like working, but I wanted to at least get something done, right? So the idea is to, like, I know people say, like, I don't know, not to get too political, but I've been seeing some Facebook posts where people are like, Martin Luther King Day, that one day where, we quote Martin Luther King and then never quote him ever again. Well, actually, I quote him quite a lot. I don't have a whole bunch of his quotes. I really only know the thing everybody knows about him, and then one other specific thing that I think is important for me personally, and that is if you can't, I don't know exactly how he says it, but if you cannot run, walk. If you cannot walk, crawl. And that's what I'm doing here, right? My mind is not ready to go burr through the code super fast today, so I can't do that. I'm not amped up on caffeine. I'm not super enthusiastic, but just because I'm not at max doesn't mean I can't do anything, right? So I'm not running. I'm more like walking through the code. Maybe I'm crawling through the code. But the idea is just to make a little bit of progress every day, whether you feel like it or not, right? Because even if it comes down to, yeah, I code for 16 hours on Monday and Tuesday, and the rest of the day I don't feel like doing anything, but I still do a little bit of stuff every day, that's still what? That's still, since we did 2 hours right here, that is... so for the day, we have one day off, and so Monday, Tuesday, let's say Monday, Tuesday, or no, Monday, we do our 16 hours straight. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So 5 other days that we're going to work. That's 10 hours. That's 10 hours if we do 2 hours a day on it. So, right, one solid work days of work spread across the rest of the week, which means that we only get 3 work days worth of work done in a week, I guess, realistically. Caffeine gets us 2 days of work done in 1 day, right? 16 hours plus the math we've just done. So I really do think that maybe caffeine doesn't really make you more productive. It just shifts where your productivity is. But I am a fan of in a work situation where you do the thing called 10-4s. You work 4 days a week, but each shift is 10 hours. So I'm a fan of batch processing everything together like that. So we got this. We're done with this for now. So this is the thing we're doing. We're on part 42 of PAINT5D Sprint. We just kind of refactored some stuff. And I'm out of here for now, unless I feel like just doing a little bit more. But I really don't feel like doing anything more, so we're out of here.